6:30, so we'll call our meeting to order. We want to welcome everybody here to the commission meeting this evening, Tuesday, October 24th. At this time, Melissa, our city clerk, will take roll call.
Commissioner Jones. Here. Commissioner Swindell.
Here.
Vice Mayor York.
Here.
Commissioner Maples. Here. Mayor Van Oster.
Here. Okay, at this time, invocation, we'll have Commissioner Swindell do that for us.
Father, we thank you, Lord, for this great day. We thank you for the rain. Lord, we thank you for much more in the forecast and much more is needed. But Father, we thank you, Lord, for this rain. Lord, we thank you for the men and women, Lord, who are active in the community. And we thank you for the wisdom that you just bestow upon us, Lord, to help operate this city and run and guide this city, Lord. We just pray for your mercy, Lord, that we would that you would just give wisdom on each of us, Lord, and great ideas and prosperity, Lord. We just thank you for all of this in the mighty name of Jesus. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, guys. Okay, well, we'll move on to the agenda and any changes or amendments. We do have one that I will move to amend the agenda to add resolution R-23-77 to new business.
Second.
Motion is made by Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Vice Mayor York, to amend the agenda to add resolution R-23-77 to new business. Commissioner Swindell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor York.
Aye.
Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Okay. We now move on to our consent agenda. We have several items on it. The first three, City Commission meeting minutes from Tuesday, October 10th, 2023. A resolution R-23-73, which is a resolution to authorize the mayor to execute a mortgage release in favor of Harold Mann. And the third one is our 2023 appropriation ordinance number AO-23-20 in the amount of $5,200,787.61. The minutes, does anybody have any changes to make to those?
I had none, Mayor.
Okay. The resolution R-23-73, Melissa, do you want to explain that one for us?
Mayor and Commissioners, the city made a property improvement loan to Harold Mann in 2017. The borrower has paid the loan in full. Therefore, the mortgage needs to be released.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And Vice Mayor York, do you have anything to bring out on the appropriation ordinance?
Certainly. We just like to cover the higher expenses, but Aspen Tree Experts, $12,114. ABM Supply, this was for Best for PD, $24,584. Caulfield Industries, this is the medium income housing project payment, $16,000. Fleet Fuels, $42,839.53. Grand River Dam Authority, this is for energy purchases for CRNF and the city, $3,442,482. Hample Oil Distributors, this was jet fuel for the airport, $28,445. Marsh USA, it's a utility appraisal, $10,212. Republic Services for residential services, $38,241. Southwest Power Pool for transmission service, 700, and that's electric transmission, I should say, $767,549. Tantalus Systems, this is for our AMI project, $298,718, and then our payroll for $428,524.
Okay. Does anybody have anything else on the appropriation ordinance they want to bring out? Okay, if not, I will move to approve items 1 through 3 of the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Motion is made by Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Commissioner Jones, to approve items 1 through 3 of the consent agenda as presented. Vice Mayor York.
Aye.
Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell.
Aye.
Fourth item on the consent agenda is, the 2023 appropriation ordinance number AO-23-20A for Isham's True Value Hardware in the amount of $166.94.
Mayor, if there are no questions, I'll move to approve item 4 of the consent agenda as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor York, seconded by Commissioner Maples to approve item 4 of the consent agenda as presented. Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster,
Abstain?
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell,
Aye.
and Vice Mayor York.
Aye.
Okay, moving on, we have comments from the public. We have any citizen desiring to address the commission shall be recognized, advance to the podium, state his or her name and address for the record. Comments shall be limited to 3 minutes unless extended by a vote of the majority of the commission. The commission does not hear matters involving litigation or city personnel. The commission does not take action on subjects not on the agenda unless unusual or hardship conditions exist. Citizens may address the commission on agenda items as they are brought to the floor.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Just a reminder, we are at this point, I believe, probably 2 weeks away from election, and our right to vote is not only a right, it's a responsibility. And believe it or not, out of the 3,000 registered voters in the city of Coffeyville, in the last 2 elections, only about between 650 and 670 of them voted. So I would encourage all registered voters to get out and vote. It's important, and I said it before, if you don't vote, you can't complain. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Hello, Commissioners and
Joe?
City Manager, Mr. Hall. I am Jolynn Faulkner, 1014 West 3rd, and I have a couple of comments to make about downtown Coffeyville and Coffeyville itself. I've lived in Coffeyville all but 10 years of my life, so that's 66 years. I have seen the commission and this city make many mistakes. Urban renewal, Veterans Stadium, Memorial Hall, and I feel like we're getting ready to make and have started to make one of the biggest decisions we have ever made, you as the commission and the city manager, and that's what's going to happen to downtown Coffeyville. After removing the awnings, we've created one major mistake after another. If we go in and start removing the columns, I feel like we're going to make more mistakes than what there are. I've talked to a business owner, and they were told, and Commissioner New York knows, the responsibility of each one of those businesses belongs to that owner. If the owners cannot afford to repair those buildings, what are we going to do? If we start repairing those buildings and more bricks start coming out and more buildings start bulging, what are we going to end up doing? Tearing down a whole block of Coffeyville because they're going to start falling down? Do we have a city engineer or somebody who's come in and given us an estimate of what it's going to cost now to start tearing down those columns? And once that starts happening, what's going to happen to the sidewalks, the streets, the infrastructure? I just feel in my heart it's just one mistake after another. If there's some way we could leave those columns, tear off one angle of it maybe, and leave the column and decorate it somehow, do something with it. Do we need an engineer to help us there? I just think we're going to end up with one big mistake. And I hate to see that block have to be taken down and destroyed, or 3 or 4 of those buildings have to be taken down and 1 or 2 left. We know what happened when the music box burned, and some of you were here when that happened, and we now have a parking lot there in the middle of 8th Street in the 100, 200 block. And is that same thing going to happen on 9th Street on the south side? I just urge you all to really think and pray and watch the decisions you're making about what happens to downtown Coffeyville. We need it. We have almost between 500 and 1,000 visitors a month just to attend the Dalton Museum. We've got to maintain what we have. And please give that some deep consideration. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. Anybody else here this evening?
So I'd like to respond to some of that, Mayor.
Oh, okay, go right ahead.
So I own buildings on 9th Street as well, Joe, as you well know, right? The damage to the buildings has nothing to do with the awnings. The awnings didn't cause the damage. Removal of the awnings didn't cause the damage. This has been ongoing for several years. I know I've been working on mine for the last 2 years trying to get it fixed. It's hard to get contractors. It's very expensive. It's going to be out of my pocket. I have a company starting next month to work on my building. All at my expense, right? So it's not that there's nothing being done. And what the city did as far as the awnings go have absolutely nothing to do with deteriorating bricks on buildings. That's all I have to say.
Bob, has the tuck pointing failed through the years?
No, it's more internal. So it's
Internal.
mainly from roof damages over the years, and it's allowed water to come down inside those walls. The mortar on those was basically limestone and sand, and not a finished mortar, which is what they used back in the late 1800s when those were built. The brick has deteriorated. As you get freeze and thaw cycles, it breaks the brick, and that causes problems. Independence went through the same thing about 10 years ago, if I remember right, where they had structure problems with their buildings. They were able to do some CDBG grants, I believe, and get some things done that way. We're looking at that as well. It's not that nothing's being done. It's just a very slow process. I've already spent money on a structural engineer report for my building. The city has that. That's why they know where I'm at with it. And that's all out of my pocket.
Well, it was
So-
going to be almost impossible to fix the brick and the building with the awnings up there.
It's a lot easier to do it without the awning,
without
yes,
the awnings,
absolutely.
to save the buildings.
Now, as far as the pigeon droppings go, it's down about 99% from what it
Yes.
was with the awnings there. So that's been a good thing. Now, the column removal, and the concern there is you got to jackhammer out the cement around those columns. The concern is the vibration on those columns that have a structural problem. That vibration may trigger those. So that's why we've decided not to do those columns until that can be addressed. There are other columns that come out and there's no problem with it. It's just the same as what happened on the north side of 9th Street when they took the awnings off of it, right? They went in and patched the sidewalks back up, and that's exactly what will happen on the south side. But hopefully that addresses your concerns, sir. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else? Okay. We will now move on to our regular agenda items, public hearings, special presentations, and proclamations. Tonight, we have City Manager Mark Hall, and he will make a presentation on the sales tax, and also he has some news on the city budget
Yes.
that he's going to report on.
American Commissioners, I know you have a copy of what you'll see on the screen. What you have before you is, this is the ballot question. This is in the process. It is submitted to the county to be placed on the ballot by Gilmore and Bell. You authorize the placement of this. At the time of the original, and given a background, the city did the expiration of this sales tax, which usually in the other sales taxes should have been in September 30 of the year. This is actually expires, and that's why this is different towards Kansas law, is that this expires on December 31st. Kansas law requires, and the question is, if this passes November 1st, then why doesn't it just continue on because it passed? Changes in Kansas law is a 90-day run out. And that is even though the question, it would pass or fail, but if it did pass, it would actually cease on December 31st, and as it states there, it would start again on April 1st, 2024. It gives the term of 10 years. It gives for the general cost, the transportation improvements throughout the city, including but not limited streets, curbing, sidewalks, and improvements throughout. It is one of those that has been kind of the confusing. Is this the same sales tax if approved? Yes, it is. But it is because changes in the date that this was put on, that requires it to stop and then start. And even though it's approved, that is still will have to stop and start. So wanted to kind of clear that up. This is where we are at in our streets, not only in residential, but on the highway. What we are doing is if you can see, it's just an illustration that you have excellent, which is brand new, and you move to failed. As we're going through, you can see is basically the rollers. That is indicating that is when maintenance starts and overlays and starts. We've exceeded that, and you can see on the majority, but the two arrows is mill and overlay or total reconstruction is required, and that's what we're facing, not only on Highway 166, but 169. So as we move through this, there will be a sales tax question that will be proposed in the next election next year, and that is more for residential. It is one of those, we have roughly 108 miles of street in the city of Coffeyville. 25 of those are for Highway 166 and 169. So that gives kind of an illustration where we're at. We're not at the beginning. What you have here is a plan. This is how we do have some in 2023 this year that were proposed to be worked on. But as you can see, the separation, that's from 2024, if passed by the voters, is what would be done in 2024 to 2034. It starts off in broad. These are pictures of 166, 166, and 169, because as you know, at the Walnut intersection, we still go 166 towards the east, but to continue north on 169, they both followed together. So 169 is in there and illustrating these are where repairs are needed. A mill and overlay is possible, but we do know certain sections, and that's why they're set on up based on, at the time, our Public Works Director is furnished this list of how we would move through with a budget and get things accomplished each year. It is focused on 166 and 169. These are, and I'll just read some frequently asked questions that it is to make aware of what this is. The renewal question will be on the ballot November 7th. It is one of those that it is, if approved, the half-cent sales tax will continue April of 2024. How long will the sales tax be collected? The sales tax will be collected in a 10-year period. It is one of those that will the half-cent sales tax be used for? And that is for general transportation improvements throughout the city, including but not limited to streets, curbing, and sidewalks. What are the benefits to the citizens of Coffeyville? The half-cent sales tax, if approved by voters, is a financial resource for addressing Coffeyville streets. All consumers, tourists, and locals pay a sales tax to fund street improvements that cannot be accomplished unless property taxes are increased. That's what I'll take a moment in saying is as cities go through, there's not, we are a property tax driven state. We are not a sales tax driven state. So cities have had to go to this resource or increase property taxes. It is the state law allows up to 3%, 3% to be placed on top of, which is 6.5%. That is what the state puts on. So we can have up to 3%. This is a half cent sales tax. The others are other things that a city is pursuing, but there's also the hospital has a half-cent sales tax on that goes collected, and that will be renewed. It can be sooner, but that expires in 2000, I believe, 26 or 27. So it is one of those. This is all the revenue that is collected, if approved by voters, stays in Coffeyville. It doesn't go anywhere else. It cannot, and like the ballot says, this is what it can be used for. It can't be used for other things, and it stays in Coffeyville. Property owners are relieved of the tax responsibility to provide the street enhancements for our great city and allow the masses, which I will get into. All city managers in cities know that roughly, as you pass through this town and you make purchases, it is one of those that people before they leave town, go buy groceries. These kind of things those are contributing to the half-cent sales tax, and they don't even live here. Now, yes, they're welcome in our great city, and we welcome those to use our parks and these things, but it is to sit there and say that a half-cent sales tax, roughly what you're doing is allowing a third of the people that don't live here, that use or can use our streets, our parks, these kind of things, to contribute to getting this done. So the burden is not solely on those that live in Coffeyville. And that's why sales tax is considered a fair tax. It is one of those, the more you earn, the more you buy. The less you earn, the more conservative you are. And that's why they feel that a sales tax is a fair tax. It is one of those, is this half-cent sales tax a new tax? No. If approved by voters and complying with state law, it would continue, but on April 1st. If it is, the voters say no, then it will expire on December 31st. It is one of those, does this half-cent sales tax affect my property tax? It does not affect your property tax at all. In fact, the sales tax relieves from the city having to go to property taxes to pay for improvements. It is, why is there a street sales tax? If we took a conservative look of what a half-cent sales tax brings in, it is roughly, to equal that, we would have to go to, and just looking at a dollar amount, is we would roughly have, based on our mill levy occurrence now, we would have to increase the mill levy 14 mills to actually equal what is taken in by the sales tax. So it is one of those that you can imagine as a taxpayer, and I'll get into that later, is I do not want my property taxes to increase. So a sales tax makes logical sense, but you also remember that third is being paid by people that don't even live here. It is we move on to these others, is I think it is one of those and that's the end of the sales tax, that we have to start. And we have to start, and this is primarily addressed. The next one will primarily address residential. But it is one of those, I think everybody's been aware that you have curbs that are 1 inch high that didn't get that way overnight. You have, if you drive 166, you'll see storm drains that are basically, collapsed. You'll see, potholes and these things but you got to start. And that is something that I know the commission wanted, is you have to have a plan. And it is one of those, as we work through this, you want to say that to everyone that there will be questions that are going to be asked. Why not mine? I think everybody understands 166 and 169, but eventually there will be on residential. But you have to start, because if you do not do this, they will continue to decline. And if you do not, you tried to sprint it, well, we'll fill a pothole here and we'll fill a pothole here. It will be one of those that will be quite costly in the end. I told you in simple math that there's around 108 miles of street. If we took that and just did logical sense of how much it would, if we took both half-cent sales taxes and we combine those two sales taxes to equal 1 cent, it would actually accomplish what everybody wants, is close to 70 years. And that's why you have to start. It is one of those that's just a simple math equation. Do you understand after 40 years what you started starts to fail again? So it's a never-ending process, but if you do not start that and you start moving the city to take these and take it a street at a time, it is one of those, you will still have the streets that have 1 inch curbs or storm drain, storm lines that are just caving in. So this is, and that's why I'm proud to say, is that the half-cent sales tax has a plan. As you've seen, going backwards that is what we propose to do each year with the funds that we receive. I will remind that there's an 80, but 90% is the responsibility of KDOT. This is a KDOT, this is a state highway. So in other words, is what we are doing is we're coming up with the portion, one way or the other, we've got to come up with to do a project. The state is we're going through your town. This is a state road, but you have the responsibility to keep this up too. It is one of those, yes, where is the money? And I'd rather sit there and say that comes from our sales tax than it sits there and says we have to go and increase property taxes. So that is, like I said, that is for this. Residential streets, I'll just add that is more on the city to move, and why wouldn't you want a half-cent sales tax to do the same thing? The next is what we have here is, just wanted to touch base and talk about, I'll get to the excitement, but it is one of those, and understanding is where is Coffeyville as we are right now. First of all, that over 60 years, Coffeyville went from a population of 17,382 and we're down to 8,826. It is one of those that we've lost over the 60 years. Based on 2020, is 49.26 of our population. That is, in Coffeyville, holds the distinction of the highest poverty and decline per capita in the state. It is something that Coffeyville is a great city. It is a great community, but these are the things that the commission has to address. It is one of those that if somebody said, what is the population compared to that we have right now? It is 1908. When you think back over 100 years ago, there was the same amount of people in Coffeyville as there is today. So there is a change of direction that's needed. It is one of those that our poverty rate is, if not the highest per capita in the state, at 29.26. It is very close to the top. That is a part of our community that we have to address, but it is one of those that is our responsibility to do that. It is with going through this whole thing is that the city is of the 5 taxing entities, of the 4 major, the city is the lowest taxing entity. I want to clarify that because there's 5. That is the city, that is the county, that is the college, that is USD 445, and that is the Rec Commission. The Rec Commission has a smaller budget simply because of its size. But of the 4, out of the 5 majors, the 4 majors, is the city of Coffeyville is the lowest taxing entity. It is one of those that also we're probably the most scrutinized because we do the most things, and that's easily understood. It is, I want to point back, that is why the tax burden, if you look at it, if you start in 1960, 2020, we lost 8,556 people. If you go from 90 to 2020, 4,091. If you go from 2000 to 20, we lost 2,195. Those people do not pay taxes here anymore. So that tax burden needs to be, and we have the duty to hold that mill levy and do everything we possibly to move the city forward at the same time. If you go to, and if you turn over, this is the thing that what the mission has been for the city commission, and I appreciate that. This is our mill levy, and each year, as it states, is we submitted this 53.1290. The way the mill levy is we receive an estimate in June, and then it is not finalized, and it's based on what we submit, but it's not finalized until November, right in this time right now. And I'll get to on this slide is that you submit, and that's where you see that we are supposed to be accurate enough, and based on their estimate on them, you'll always see the mill levy around November, around the 1st of November. It'll finalize, but it could go up and it could go down. But it's usually a small increment if everybody's doing what they're supposed to. So you see in 2009 that what ended up settling is 53.1300. That was the 129 was submitted, but that's where it settled. It was very close, very, very close. The next year, the 53.129 was submitted, and it just moved to 53.110. There's a more dramatic look in this, but if you look at that number, it is very, very close on a flat line. Just wanted to show. The next year, we submitted 53.129, and guess what? It settled on exactly that. The next year, we submitted 53.129, and it settled on exactly that. The next year, we submitted 53.129, but as you can see, it dropped down to 52.7910. This year, and why this is a presentation is we do have the final for 2024. It was submitted 53.1290. The county confirmed our mill levy for 2024. It starts in November. is 8780. So the city is done. In fact, is a little, but I look at it as so close that the city has held the mill levy. And yes, there was a little bump, but that's determined. But then there was a little bump down. But if you look at the 50, and I put in there, you're looking at a difference from a low of 0.338 to a high of 0.382. So it is one of those that the commission, you've held the mill levy, and as the other slide with a situation, that is the responsibility. But what that means is the city has to operate more efficiently. It has to sit there and do everything it can to hold the taxes. If you'll go to the next slide, this is what the history is of what happened to Coffeyville. If you look at what the mills are worth as they change, is starting off is basically, this is the valuation of a mill, was in 19 was roughly 1 mill. We collected 50,910. It is one of those. The next year we actually popped up just a hair, and we collected, which were already down from the years prior to this, is 50,886. The thing is that went up 18,000. If you look at the next year, and these are all losses before we even start budget. It is one of those, it went down to $49,226 per mill. The next year, it declined down, and if you look at the very bottom of each one, as we go through this, in the year 2021, we started that just in mill loan, and I will get that, $89,508 in the hole. Didn't do anything. The valuation took that away, and it sat there and said, you're starting off your budget, $89,000 in the hole. How are you going to make that up? The next year, we started the budget for the next year, $192,900 just in mill levy, property taxes. How are you going to make that up? Then you sit there and went to the next year, you start the budget $185,000 in the hole. It wasn't until this year that you sit there and you go, we popped up, and a lot of that is due to the sales of property. You know, everything during COVID got kind of, we'll just say, inflated property. So the end result, which we do not determine value, that is not ours, is we actually came up, when compared to 19, we came up with a $48,205 actually to the good of where we started in 19. If you'll go to the next slide, and this is what really hurt Coffeyville. If you'll go to the next slide, you'll sit there and say well, part of the general fund, which I really worry about the general fund because that's my property taxes. That's the thing that I sit there and get upset about. What Coffeyville experienced, and you can imagine that since 2007, we've knocked down, after the flood, over, and we're just a hair over, 900 homes have been removed due to blight conditions or the flood. There is an estimated 700 are still substandard. So when you take that away, that means less utility users, which is franchise fees. There's less houses, there's less ratepayers. So that's where you see this drop and there's nothing you can do. You can't wish it, but you see suddenly we've sit there and dropped to an expected revenue collection of $284,100. You go through and you can see at a high up there, we used to, in the year 17, got $665,000. But now it's drastically went down, and that will continue until the city builds more homes. It is one of those, so 2024, starting 20 through 24, we're looking at is to add with this drop, and that'll be in the next slide, of $228,700 that the general fund, which your taxes are in, we're not going to get. So you move, and this is what it looks like for us. If you look in the picture, it is the general fund revenue estimate of property tax and franchise. So this is the total thing that we're walking into budget each year. We're walking into budget, and you sit there in 19, we started, if you remember back, it was a little less, but the total that we started was $228,700 in the hole. So you have to do something to make that up, or you pass it on to property taxpayers. The next year, in 20, $210,000 we start the year. Then you sit there and go down to is in 2021, this is scary. We start the budget $318,000 in the hole. Then you go to, in this, we were hoping sometime it would hit bottom. And that's what happened in 2022. Our budget started before we figuring anything is $421,600 in the hole. The city didn't do anything wrong. The city, this is taking away money that won't be collected. It wasn't because we overspent. You have to have a budget in Kansas law. You have to have a balanced budget. But it is one of those that, what are we going to do? We knew it hit bottom, and then we were actually pleased to say that we started the budget in 2023. Is sitting there going, oh, we're only down 414,000. That's all. But we got to make that up. And then something happened, and that was valuation went up. Valuation went up. So the 2024 budget, and you can see we're never going to make back where we were. We're never. That is something. But the commission is, we started with this budget $6,713 above. So through that is in the budget, and want to explain, as you're aware, this is a long process. First it starts in May, it goes through staff for a month, then in June it goes through, it's analyzed, and all through June, we have wage and all the negotiations with this. It goes through, and then it is in July is when you're presented the budget. It is with revenue neutral rate, and I was going to ask Jason to explain that because it's hard. It's hard to explain. But with this revenue neutral rate, but you had, is we stick with, is by the end of August, we're going to let file to the state or to the county of our budget. But it is one of those that all through this, the commission, and I know this is commissions prior to you, but have sit there and said that we have to do something to protect the taxpayers. We have a high mill levy rate of 53. Used to be that 30s was okay, then it went to 40s okay. Now I can tell you there is one city in the state that has a 70 mill levy, which was unheard of. You're getting more of the 50s, that 50s is common. You are now seeing more that are up in the 60s. So it is something, because we are a property tax driven state. But through this, I want to commend that it is one of those, is if you look through this, it is one of those, and explaining is, this is actually looking at numbers and other things that hurt the city in the budget. As you can see, that is in certain years going in, that you sit there and you go, well, what did 19, compared, what is going on in the valuation? In 2024, we had that 235, but it translated to $6,000. But you sit there and you go, well, in 2024, we still had that franchise fee. It was, well, that's not going away. And if you take that difference, it comes up to is a total positive was the $6,000. That's all of that up and down. That gets to that. Then this is the thing that happened for 24. We also got hit with $247,443 of just insurance. Now, it's got to come from somewhere. But it is one of those, the only thing we can do is operate more efficiently. But it is on the general liability insurance, that went up, which you remember that night, is Miss Richardson was here and said this is not good news. And this was based on an increase the year before. It went 300. So now you sit there and you go, the total, what was faced in going in and looking at the budget is we had to come up with, not the 200, this was $622,688. It's got to come from somewhere. And it is one of those that with the commission and this, ordering us and say, do what you can, because we don't want to increase taxes. We want to hold them, and you guys can figure out a way. I just want to say, and I commend, and like what I said in summary, the city commission has held the mill levy each year besides the financial condition of the city. I'm proud to say that each city commission has not intentionally increased property taxes. And it is one of those, I will, and I'll cut instead of reading that because you can read it, is you sit there and go that one thing that was magical through this, we didn't lose anybody. It would have been so easy to answer that instead of getting smarter, we just start removing people from our budget. And that goes all, and there's not a department that says that in this past 5 years that have been targeted. We have worked, and through you all, going through the budget, I am proud to say we've weathered the storm. We are financially more secure and stable, but it is one of those, we never said goodbye to employee. And you saw what we had to go through each year. It is one of those that I just had is on the last, is some of these things that you transpired is to sit there and go, if you look at the stadium, that working with the college now owns the stadium, and the college owns the baseball and softball fields. It is through, you have the only housing program, the USDA housing program in the state. The other is, and those is a picture of, those are new homes being built. And we have talked to a contractor, which we are having discussing, but is interested in how many homes? Just a ballpark? Well, no, the one that has been interested in Coffeyville. 38 units.
Okay.
There is more to come, but this is one of those, this is your answer for the future, is the secret to Coffeyville is population. That's it. You can't change it. But it is one of those, if you don't have a place to live, and you can imagine for 11 years, we didn't build a home at all. But that is changing, and Coffeyville's changing, and it has to, because population cures a lot of problems but this is something that you've been fostered to, and I just want to let you know that this is where Coffeyville has to go, and has to go in the future, is because you can imagine we do not have any market rate apartment complexes in Coffeyville. There is not. The ones that you see that are apartment complexes are income-based. It is one of those that, of the income-based, 90 of those were taken down in the Coffeyville expansion. And you can remember, you as a commission worked very well with, and I feel the comment at that meeting from that one contractor that at the MAC meeting that you were at, Deborah, you remember that his exact words was Coffeyville, the city of Coffeyville has been great to work with. That is, and I know things might be said, there was a lot of drama in the community, but if you look out east, there's CVR's new administration building and shops. No question about it. What people say or do, the end result is in some question. We'll just say $40 million worth of improvement sitting over there, and can't deny that. So it is one of those, you work well. You've moved the city forward. It was hard times during that because a lot of people were yelling. You did the right thing, and you defended those on the east side. But somebody says, well, maybe that was wrong. You kind of go, no, that was the right thing to do. But guess what? If you go look out east, that administration building and those shops are there. So through all the problems and everything that was faced, the end result is CVR has a great administration. They will actually expand possibly 2 more expansion. Those are, one will be more internal and the other one will be external. But it is one of those, they plan to move forward on their plans, and guess what? Everybody was taken care of. So anyway, that's the end, but that is, I am proud to say on this, the news that we learned was that with all your hard work on the budget, is we actually dipped a little, because I said it's not an exact science,
Right.
but it dipped a little, and you held again property tax. So I apologize for taking that, but I'm pretty proud of the staff. They've gone without. Like I said, when you're starting $666,000 in the hole, there's a lot of things you got to give up, but you never lost an employee. So anyway, thank you.
I do want to touch on a couple of things, Mayor, if I may. So the 14 mills that you had in there for the half cent, that is just for a half cent, right?
That is just for a half cent. That's the equivalent. And that's based on our new mill value.
That's correct. So when you look at, we have a project starting on 169, hopefully here within the next few months, right, Thomas? So the city's contribution on that is around $500K, somewhere in that neighborhood. You're looking at, if you had to do that through property tax rather than a sales tax, that's 9 mills of property tax for that portion. That's 950 feet of highway,
Yep.
right? So 4 lanes, 950 feet.
Yes.
Right. Our portion of that's $500,000. Total project's around 1.6, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, I think that's what Jim estimated.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it's where that sales tax is so crucial to the city, and I mean the state, because it is a state highway, the state can come in and say, you will fix that road.
Yes, that's
Right?
our responsibility.
Yeah, so whether you have the sales tax there to do it or not, you still have to fix the road. You can't just let it go.
And
So,
in some, and that is a requirement of, it's going through, which we benefit by commerce.
Right,
You know, tramming through, we can't say, well, just take the highway and go somewhere else.
right.
It is one of those that it is the city has 2 things. You either come up with cash, and that is going to, and you remember, we got to first collect it, property tax.
Right.
You know, you got to pay all a year. But it is one of those that you sit there and you go, or you go finance it. Net result is you go in debt. And that is sitting there going, somebody has to pay that debt. And it is that property tax would be the only thing you could go to, is sitting there going, we'll increase this, and those debt payments, as you pay property tax, will keep paying this debt. And the sad thing is that can be for years.
The other thing I wanted to touch on was the franchise fees. So franchise fees are collected from companies like Atmos, Cox Communications, AT&T.
Even
So,
our own.
As we lose structures, we lose customers off
Yes.
of those as well, which is why the franchise fees show
dropped.
that decrease as well.
Yes,
So,
that's
I just wanted to highlight that.
the other is technology.
Mhm.
If we all remember back in the day, and I know we can, but it is cable TV.
Mhm.
There wasn't any wireless, and that goes for phones. Used to be hardline phones.
Right.
They call it an over fence appraisal, but you actually put value of how much per foot that this gets, you know, by putting in. That's your how you get your right of ways and get through. But it is one of those that it actually I want to say is that with technology, that has been one of the biggest. Now we have a double, and that is because of losing houses. But you saw the city of Colorado Springs, just in a matter of time, and this was around 10 years ago, $7 million worth of franchise fees a year,
Right.
just because of technology.
Mark, while we're on the subject of streets, I'm going to bring this up again. West Coffeyville, 6th and 7th Street, out there are hideous. Those poor homeowners, their vehicles are taking a beating. Is there any way that we can?
The best way is we'll always look, but that is the tough thing. You have to start, and when you have to start, everybody, and I want to say, bear with me on this statement, Coffeyville is a great place, but everybody has a bad street. I mean, and I just want to say that it is one of those, there'll always be, for the future of Coffeyville, there'll always be hard choices, and it's not that that anybody's better. It's just hopefully someday, as time goes on, there'll be, and I use this example, 4 going north and south, and 4 going east and west every 10 years. The thing is, wherever you live in that grid, get to one of those 8 streets, and you'll really like driving on it. But that is just mathematically, it is. We've dropped rock, we hear about, sunflower, we hear all these things, but like I said, is what you do for one takes away from somebody else. And then it doesn't fix what you really need to fix. So it's tough, but we'll look and see what we can possibly do.
Something, because I've driven those lately. And
Oh.
You beat yourself to death.
No.
Oh, there's several
just-
streets like that in Coffeyville.
And I
Oh,
know there
I-
are several streets
I wish,
like that.
and I do.
But-
It is, and like I said, we look at, we are the best rock dropping people you've ever seen. But it is one of those, that is the crying shame, because as you sit there and you go, what you do here, you won't do somewhere else. And then somebody said, well, my street's just as bad. We have actually, I want to say cul-de-sacs or dead-end roads or whatever that are all gravel. And then, Lee Street, I did not know how that happened. But you sit there and say, there's that we've lost the street, and we try to smooth the gravel, and that's sad. But like I said, 108 miles, and you just do the math, and you do how much it costs, and you sit there and you come up with and you remember in 40 years, you got to, all those that you did for 40 years, you got to go back and start fixing those at the same fixing time you're looking at 70 years. And you go, I will not be here in 70 years, and I wish it could, but it is, that's how long it would take to have this dream of where it could be. And I've been asked it's not anybody's fault. It's just when you don't have a plan and you go back, clear back to here and not have a plan, it becomes where you're just trying to keep ahead of it as it deteriorated. And the old saying, the wonderful flower shop on Elm. I won't get into showing favoritism, but it is a wonderful flower shop. And I remember when I first got in here, I tripped over the 2-inch curb.
Yeah.
And then I've never seen that. I've never seen a 2-inch curb. But then what's sad is you go, there's 4 more inches down there. And then you go to some streets where these things are a foot. And you kind of go, well, not good. But it's not to blame. Way, way, way back, we just started covering and adding to it till it got to where now that you add to it, it makes it worse. But we'll look into that. I mean, and see what we can do.
Okay, 100 years ago when I was a kid, see, I am older than you. They had dirt roads that were smoother than what they've got now.
Oh, that's the thing. Once you get a pothole, it seems like it goes to China.
Yeah.
It
does.
just
Yeah.
all the way down, and that's what we used to say as kids. Well, I'm kind of older since we're the elderly.
Yeah.
Since we're the elderly, it is some of these go way down. You keep digging, and you lose a rim, you lose a tire. But that is, I want to say proudly, we're the best rock dropping city and public service, and they have the same thing. They do cold patch. We have a problem with bringing in hot asphalt just because of the amount, so they use cold patch. Well, cold patch won't last as long. You have all these things that go against it, but they do. And I want to say, looking at them, they know it. You can tell it in their eyes, and they're going, man, we wish we could have a beautiful, smooth road.
So you
But
had a
we'll
dollar
look
figure
on
a
it.
while back on cost per mile to restructure a road. Do you remember what that was?
Well, it is estimate is that if it's KDOT uses roughly, and it's very high on a highway mile, is you're looking at close to 1.5 to 1.6 million per mile.
Yeah.
Then they sit there and they go, our estimates are off, and in some places, because of the traffic, they go $8 million a mile.
Right.
In local, I want to sit there and say that you're looking at, and Thomas is better than that. He actually calculated a formula, but you sit there depending on how and going down what you got and how far you go. I want to say you can easily sit there if you had to say a mile. If you went down to base and totally went down and totally reconstruction, you could get up close to $1 million. If you have to do an overlay, you're looking at anywhere from $300,000 to $600,000 for that mile. It'll probably lean more to 600. But you can imagine if you had, and this is what's sad, at 16 million for every 10 years, if you combine the both, you just do the common math that you sit there and you go, let's just say is 108 million. Well, we know we've got that much of streets and stuff. And then you sit there and you go, well, let's just cut it in half and say it's a perfect just mill and overlay. Then you sit there and you go, you've got 54 million you got to come up with, but every 10 years you only get 16 million. And then you start going, how many 10 years? And then you got to add in 40 years, and that's usually on concrete. If you go to asphalt, you could look at 20 to 30, but you got to start maintaining this stuff or it'll fall apart again. And that's where the money just, that, like I said, you could easily sit there, and hopefully it wouldn't be that long, but you could easily say 70 years of constantly having a plan.
Yep.
Okay.
Joe?
Okay.
I just have a comment. If we have 8,000 plus residents of Coffeyville, how many of those in the southern half of Montgomery County have moved out of the city limits into homes out in the county that do not pay city tax? Do we have any idea?
Roughly, and this is kind of confusing, there is 3,667 jobs in Coffeyville over the age of 16, full and part-time, okay? Out of that, only two-thirds that take those jobs, two-thirds live outside the city limits. So if you get in, and that gives you an estimate because of children and having to figure, but it is one of the is you just sit there and go, there's only it's really 35%. 35% of that 3,667 live in Coffeyville. So it is hard to get a number exactly. You can go by is Coffeyville, you can go 2.75 per family and try to do the math on that way that if they're living
Well, my
out.
brain is thinking, we have multiple citizens that own businesses in Coffeyville who live outside the city limits. And they're not paying any city taxes.
No, they're not.
So this half-cent sales tax is very important
Yes.
because they're spending their money in our community, and we're not getting any of their property tax.
That is correct.
And we need to support, I feel like we need to support this sales tax. And I think you've done a very good job tonight explaining to citizens that have asked us
And
how
I-
that sales tax is going to be recovered.
And you should be, and not to interrupt, but the journal's here.
Yes.
So what you saw tonight, you will see a different version in the journal, and I believe that's Wednesdays and Saturdays.
Saturdays.
But it is one of those is getting that out. Of course, KGGNF has been explaining, but what you're right. It is something that you have to
The
do.
one commercial that KGGF is running sounds almost like a threat, that if you don't pay this, if you don't
Oh.
vote for this, your property tax is going to go up. But what we need to know, or people need to know, is those people are going to be paying that sales tax also, as
Yes.
well as our tourists and everyone else. So
Correct.
I feel like, we need to get that word out. And we've been talking to millennials, and they don't take the newspaper. They don't listen to the radio. So the only way we can get the word out is by speaking about it
Yes.
in public. And I don't know how many people are watching tonight at all.
Yes.
But I feel like that's something that we have to stress, that this isn't going to be another burden, another half-cent tax. It's going to be something that we need. And I think we pay what? Anna Marie will know for sure. How much sales tax do we pay? 9.5% or
Yes.
8.5%?
Yes, it's 9.5.
9.5. And it won't go up to 10. But when we lived in Tennessee, we paid at least 10%, if not 12% in some places.
It's the way a lot of
So-
states fund their stuff is through
Yeah.
sales tax.
Yes, and so we need to do that. My second question is, we have multiple lots in the city of Coffeyville that already have the infrastructure there. How can we utilize those lots by making them available to people to put some type of a structure, a home, that we could get a property tax paying person in the city of Coffeyville?
Right now, what we've done is to let you know, and the commission is doing this, if you wish to, I guess, build on the property next to your house, ours is, in which doesn't have any true value, they can purchase it or be given it free, depending what they are doing. We do have some that they'll maintain the lot, and if they do what they say, they get the lot free. We have some that I want to, and I'll pay property taxes on it, then it's just the minimal. A developer, it is a little different story, but we have a program, if it's new construction, then they can get, which usually is equivalent to the lot, is upon completion, they can get $3,000 for new construction. We are, is the USDA program. That is the only one program that I know of in the United States, which the federal government is a sponsor of. We can actually go into any part of the city, and these are 3-bedroom, 2-bath houses. It is one of those that should the property owner leave, that goes on the fair market. There's not it has to stay, but it is one of those, as long as it's not a floodplain, we can go, and you can imagine as this program kicks off, we can build 10 homes per year, and we can start infill. And this first round will be of 5, and it'll be in roughly but whenever that starts is roughly in the 9th Street area. Is that the best? So it is one of those that we're going to infill with that, but we also want is, if you want to build here, the lots, sometimes we just inherit them, is you can have those lots.
Okay, so there are lots available that people could build on if the cost of building wasn't so high right now.
Yeah, and it is one of those, we actually have a list that we keep of vacant lots, and that's just for our program, because the USDA will have to purchase lots sometimes, and then they become ours for the program. But we keep a list of all these open lots.
Does it have to be one of the 250,000 plus homes that they
No,
build
no,
on
no,
these
no, no,
lots?
no. No, that's a we'll just say a developer, and you know who we're talking about.
Yes.
That's just the homes that he wants to target and feel they could. There is a lot of things that we can do for an interest party, and that's what Thomas, they have met with this party, is we can offer things that Wichita cannot. The size of our community, we can actually, and excuse the term, wheel and deal. We can give them incentives that larger cities cannot, and that's just the way the government's set up. We have RHID, we've got special assessment, neighborhood revitalization. There's certain population requirements, but those are how you develop, and they're only available, we'll just say, to the smaller cities. So you can imagine if we call
Well, thank you. Those are just a
Wichita.
couple of questions. I know the meeting's getting to be pretty long,
All
but
right.
those are
That's
just
all right.
questions that I feel like maybe the community needs to
Yes.
know.
Well,
And
and I
they don't-
think it's also important to point out, the city doesn't own a lot of the vacant lots. I mean, those are still in
It's
private
private
ownership,
ownership.
so it,
Well,
yeah.
and then when they're private ownership, you what? If they don't pay their taxes on it, can you confiscate it?
No, you
Yes.
cannot. No, you cannot.
Well,
Can't confiscate property, no.
no, I guess what
It'll go on a tax sale.
they'll go on a tax
Yeah,
sale.
yeah.
They'll go on a tax
Yeah.
sale.
Right.
They'll go on a tax sale.
I believe it's 4 years, Jim.
I was going to say, so it has to
Yeah.
sit vacant
Yeah.
for 4 years without
Right.
them paying
Yeah.
taxes for
Goes
4
Then
years.
it goes on the sheriff's tax
So I think
sale,
there's a
and
tax
you have a
sale
new owner,
this
right?
year,
Yeah.
is it not?
Yeah.
Now, the
So-
city can go to the tax sale and buy lots, but then you end up owning lots, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
And in some cases, it has been how we've obtained the lots.
Yep.
We have some that are donating lots.
To
it
get off the
is-
tax roll.
Is they're
Right.
looking at,
Yeah. that I
Yeah.
know.
I'm paying for an empty lot, and this is what it cost me, and I'm getting in the hole on this, so I'd like to donate that lot.
Okay. I think I've taken up enough of your time.
No,
I thank you,
that's-
appreciate
that's
it.
quite
I
all right.
really
Thank
hope
you.
that the sales tax will pass.
Yeah.
And thank you.
Okay, let's move.
Sort of a family affair this evening. Real quick, I would just encourage, you mentioned, someone's, didn't say who, a contractor's interested. You mentioned, what, 38
Yes.
lots? That needs to be started sooner than later, because in terms of a prospective city manager, they look at the communities that they're looking at as far as job search, and one of the factors that they consider is new housing starts as an indicator of the potential and the growth for a community. So that's important, whether it's on another piece of property or whether it's internal on some of these lots. We need these housing starts as soon as possible.
Well, so any industry or any business looking to come into a community looks at that as well. It is an important number, yes.
Okay.
Okay, we will now move on. We have no old business, so we will move on to new business. First one we have is Resolution R-23-74, which is a resolution to purchase fire hose from Conrad Fire Equipment for the Coffeyville Fire Department. Our Captain Mike O'Connor is making comments this evening.
Mayor, Commissioners, this should be a pretty short resolution for you. We're just looking to purchase roughly 700 feet of fire hose. Typically, every September, we pressure test all of our hose, which is a requirement. In doing so, we failed a few sections of 2.5-inch hose and don't really have many spares, so this is just going to be upgrading. Not necessarily upgrading, but increasing our extra hose we have on hand. So roughly every truck carries roughly around 2,000 feet of fire hose. So anyway, if you have any questions, what we're looking at is roughly 10 sections of 2.5, which is 500 feet, and then 2 sections of 5-inch hose. So,
Mike, what is the life of a hose? I'm just curious.
it just depends. We actually had some stuff that still passes a pressure test from 1978. So,
Wow.
the saying of they don't make them like they used to still holds true. So it just depends on the wear and tear. So, I mean, if
Exposure
there's
to
fire,
chemicals,
heat
that kind of
damage,
thing, yeah.
chemical damage,
Heat.
I wish, roughly I would say probably 10 years, but there's so many variables, it's
Right.
hard to say. So,
Okay, just curious.
And you feel very comfortable with the vendor you've chosen?
I'm not
correct?
sure why the prices are so
Well, the
varied
two
as they
are pretty.
because it's,
The two are pretty close.
and
I'm
it's-
just the
it's-
one.
And the
it's
Delta's
the
way
same
up there.
brand.
The
hose.
one is way up
yeah,
there.
it's the same brand of hose that we currently have. So
Okay.
what I'm suspecting is Delta Fire probably doesn't sell a lot of fire hose, so they
So they
probably
don't-
don't have as good of a.
Been able to, a price to pass
So
on.
Conrad's out of Olathe. We do a lot of business with them. We should have the hose within probably 2 to 3 weeks. So,
Yeah. Okay.
but yeah, very comfortable with the product that we're
Okay.
requesting. So.
Okay. All right. Does anybody else have any questions for Captain O'Connor?
Mayor,
Okay.
if there are no other questions, I'll move to approve Resolution R-2374 as presented.
Second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor York, seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve Resolution R-23-74 as presented. Mayor Van Oster,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor York,
Aye.
Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Good evening.
Thanks, Mike.
Okay, then next on our agenda, we have Resolution R-23-75, which is a resolution to approve the submission of a Kansas Department of Transportation grant application for the rehabilitation of runway 17-35 at the Coffeyville Municipal Airport. Our Director of Airport Services, Mr. Jared Powers, is here this evening to make comments.
Mayor, Commissioners,
Good evening, Jared.
Jared?
the Coffeyville Municipal Airport is requesting KDOT's assistance in supplementing federal funding for an upcoming federal fiscal year 2025 project to rehabilitate runway 1735. The FAA has deemed that only the center 75 feet of the runway 1735 is eligible for federal funding, and the outer 12.5 feet is ineligible for the funding. We have money set aside for 2025 for this project, but our portion is very large. So if we can get them to fund this project, it would lower our portion.
The portion we have.
The total project is $500,000, $450,000 KDOT, and $50,000 sponsors.
Okay.
So it's a 90-10, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay. Anybody have any questions for Jared?
And this is just asking to
To
apply. for
submit
the
Right,
grant.
the
yeah.
grant?
I'm here on
Yes.
time this time.
Yeah.
That's okay. I make a motion to approve Resolution R-23-75 as presented.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Commissioner Maples to approve Resolution R-23-75 as presented. Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell.
Aye.
Vice Mayor York.
Aye.
Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thanks.
I have one favor to ask you since you're up there. Would
Yes.
you tell everybody about what you've got going on this weekend,
We-
hopefully?
Hopefully, we have a open house, fly-in lunch on Saturday on the 28th from 11 to 3. Weather permitting, people can still come out.
Okay.
We'll have food, but if it's bad weather, we're not going to get people to fly in. So
Yeah, okay.
it's a bummer. Should have had it last Saturday, but there was too many other things.
No, I know, but that's
Maybe
good.
there'll be a break and we'll get something.
Something. Well, I sure hope so.
I would certainly encourage folks to go out and look at all the work that's been done
Yes.
out there. It's a vast improvement, and
Yeah.
you guys have done a heck of a job, Joe.
Yeah.
We used to fly in and out of there so many times. We had a friend that had a plane, and it was always so nice, out there. You guys always did a good job
I
of
don't
keeping
think
that up.
people really understand. I mean, we're not a big airport, but how much traffic we really have.
There is a lot.
Friday, we had 10 flights in and out of there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
7
great.
of them bought fuel, it's just.
Yep.
That's great.
But today, because of the weather,
Yeah.
probably one.
Okay, well, you're doing a great job out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we will now move on to the next resolution, R-23-76, which is a resolution to approve the purchase of 6 police vehicles with the necessary emergency equipment for the Coffeyville Police Department. Our police captain, Darren Daly, will make comments.
Excuse me. Good evening, Mayor and Commissioners.
Good evening.
Tonight, the resolution before you is about the continuation to increase the life of our fleet and also lower maintenance cost as we move forward. We've had to wait for some time to kind of get numbers from vendors and dealerships due to the Dodge Charger no longer being produced. So we're only options basically an SUV type vehicle, which is the Dodge Durango, which has been becoming the primary vehicle used by law enforcement agencies throughout the country. And also with this, we recommend using the ARPA funds, which will not cost the citizen, the taxpayer, any money by purchasing it through that fund. The total cost for the 6 vehicles, and this is including all the emergency equipment except for the radios. Total cost is $333,546.47. Now we're going through a company who they get the vehicle itself at the dealer cost, and then they outfit it. It's got, like I put in my resolution, it's a one-stop shop. They install all the equipment and the vehicle's there, and they do all that for us. The only thing we have to do is do the decaling, which we do locally to a vendor here locally here in Coffeyville. And then the other part of the resolution is we do have to purchase radios for those vehicles, and for the 6 radios is $22,955.48. And so that'll equip all of the vehicles with radios, and that will pretty much take care of everything with this resolution. And then lastly, on one of our SUVs, 2020 Ford vehicle, recently the transmission went out. We contacted the Ford dealership. They wanted $5,000 for a transmission and then another $2,000 for installation, so $7,000 is what we were looking at. We were not going to replace that vehicle. But thanks to David Westerfeld, works out at the City Barn, he was able to get a brand new transmission for us for $3,576.22. And we found the only thing he can't do is program it, but he can install it, so we're not paying any labor costs, and we just paying $200 to get it programmed, and then we turn in the old transmission and we'll get a $1,000 rebate. So the transmission that costs $3,500 is essentially $2,500 for us. Is there any questions?
So these will be replacing other cruisers, is that correct?
Yes, we've already kind of had to take one out of commission. It's kind of still a backup car, but we've had to strip equipment out of it to supply other vehicles. So, like this recent event with this 2020, we wasn't expecting that new of a vehicle to happen.
Right.
It does have a sister vehicle, so we're hoping we don't run into the same issue because they seem to be on a similar path recently with maintenance. So
Okay.
we're keeping our fingers crossed on that.
And then what will be done with the other vehicles that are replaced out of this?
Pardon?
What will be done with the other vehicles that are replaced?
Ultimately, if they're not serviceable for the street, they will probably be Purple Wave, could be sold.
Or they'll be repurposed
With
in another
departments?
department.
Yep, okay.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Yep.
Once again, these are using ARPA funds.
That's correct.
So, yes,
Saves the capital fund. and-
yes. Okay.
Well, if there are no other questions, I move to approve resolution R-23-76 is presented.
Second. Go ahead. Jason took it. Yep.
Motion is made by Commissioner Jones, seconded by Commissioner Swindell to approve Resolution R-23-76 as presented. Commissioner Swindell,
Aye.
Vice Mayor York,
Aye.
Commissioner Maples,
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Okay.
Thank
you.
Thank you.
Darren. Appreciate it.
I might add that there is some grant funding going on in this that they've applied for and these things. So what you're seeing is the net, the net effect. Some of these uses is there's where we've got a grant to lower the price.
Right.
And we're taking advantage of that, so I might mention that.
Okay. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next up on is Resolution R-23-77, which is a resolution to enter into an agreement with Strategic Government Resources Incorporated for executive recruitment services for the city manager position. I believe you all have a copy of the contract, and this has been looked over and checked to make sure everything is okay with it. Do you have further questions of me?
I did not hear.
Mayor, just one quick question of May. Will the company also be providing an interim, or will we be getting that from the league?
No.
No, they won't provide an
They don't
interim. No.
provide them.
Nothing from the league? Okay, so Strategic Government Resources will also be providing the interim?
No.
No.
No,
No.
no interim.
That'll be up to the commission to
Commission
determine.
to do
yeah.
that.
Okay,
It'll be up to us.
is there a plan to acquire an interim?
If
Well,
needed.
If
yeah.
needed. Mhm.
If needed.
We'll see.
Okay, thank you.
Uh-huh.
Okay, you have any other questions?
No?
Okay.
Mayor, if there are no other questions, I'll move to approve Resolution R-2377 as presented.
Second.
Motion is made by Vice Mayor York, seconded by Commissioner Jones to approve Resolution R-23-77 as presented. Vice Mayor York,
Aye.
Commissioner Maples,
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones,
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell.
Aye.
Okay, moving on now. City Manager's Report. Do you have anything else to add on?
I think there was
I think you pretty
little
well did everything.
skepticism in there that I took so long. No, I just wanted to sit there and go, we are progressing in a staff meeting this morning, just to let people know. We are at the end of all the events downtown. You know, it is, so we will move forward. I do not see in this short minute of time, but we will be calling Taylor Crane, and we'll start with that. And like I explained, the 5 columns will remain, and it is one of those that also what was discussed is the completion of Sycamore Park. All this is going to start ramping up in November, and then that way we can complete things by December 31st. So we will have that section, and that, you know, like Commissioner York said, that downtown that we will not be touching. But others and Phil and those, so where we can, is to get that back and look at presentable. A lot of great buildings. I've had a lot of people excited, but staff is doing. We're looking at getting everything done by the end of the year. We're going to be moving into the holiday season, so it's one of those we're moving fast as I can, and they'll be preparing for 2024.
Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mark. Okay, we will now move on from comments from commissioners and staff. Jason, do you have anything?
Nothing.
Deb? Nothing? Mrs. Jo-
Surprising, right?
Mrs. Jones?
I could harp on a lot of things, but I won't. I could harp on a lot of things, but I won't.
I would encourage folks, so we won't have another meeting until after the election, so I would
Correct.
encourage folks to get out and vote, as Jim said. It's your responsibility
Responsibility to do
as a
that.
citizen to get out and vote, and, so please do so.
Okay,
And don't forget the fly-in this weekend.
Yep.
Yeah.
yes, yes. Okay, we will now move on to an executive session, and I will make a motion that we move to recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel as permitted by the non-elected personnel matter exception to the Open Meetings Act as set forth in KSA 75-43, 19B1, to include the city commission to reconvene in the commission room at, I'm going to say about 8:10 p.m., if that's all right with you all.
That's fine.
Okay.
And could we have a 5 or 6 minute
Break.
Break?
Yes.
Okay, yes, then let's make
So
it
make
8:15. Okay, and we'll just take a break, 5-minute break, and then, yes, that'll be fine.
I'll second.
Motion is made by Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Vice Mayor York, to recess to executive session for the purpose of discussing personnel matters of non-elected personnel as permitted by the non-elected personnel matter exception to the Open Meetings Act as set forth in KSA 75-4319B1 to include the City Commission to reconvene in the Commission Room at 8:15 p.m. Commissioner Maples.
Aye.
Mayor Van Oster.
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Swindell.
Aye.
And Vice Mayor York.
Aye.
Can't even sit down. Yeah, finally.
Okay, we have come back from executive session, and there is no action to be taken at this time. So now I will move on, and I will make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion is made by Mayor Van Oster, seconded by Commissioner Maples to adjourn. Can I see a show of hands?